जब जीवन में दुख का अंधियारा छाए, मन में सदा श्रद्धा की ज्योत जलाए, विश्वास मन का तुझको पार लगाए, भक्ति भावना श्रद्धा से जो शीश झुकाए, मन में आशा के दीपक बुझने न पाए, सुबह फिर से आएगी, रात समझाए, कहते हैं किस्मत जिसको कर्म का फल है, जीवन में कर्मयोग का मार्ग ही अटल है, जो कुछ है हाथ में तेरे, एक यही पल है, अच्छे कर्म किए जाए तो जीवन सफल है। ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम। ओ जब कठिनाई छाई तू ही याद आया, भटके राही को तूने रास्ता दिखाया, तूने भक्ति तेरे महिमा मेरे साई कान जान पाया। ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम।
गणेशाय नमः। सरस्वत्यै नमः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्।
श्रद्धयाग्निः समिध्यते श्रद्धया विन्दते हविः श्रद्धां भगस्य मूर्धनि वचसा वेदयामसि प्रियग् श्रद्धे ददतः प्रियग् श्रद्धे दिदासतः प्रियं भोजेषु यज्वसु इदम् उदितं कृधि यथा देवा असुरेषु श्रद्धामुग्रेषु चक्रिरे एवं भोजेषु यज्वसु अस्माकमुदितं कृधि श्रद्धां देवा यजमानाः वायुगोपा उपासते श्रद्धागुं हृदयया कूत्या श्रद्धया हूयते हविः श्रद्धां प्रातर्हवामहे श्रद्धां मध्यं दिनं परि श्रद्धागुं सूर्यस्य निमृचि श्रद्धे श्रद्धापये हमा श्रद्धा देवानधिवस्ते श्रद्धा विश्वमिदं जगत् श्रद्धां कामस्य मातरं हविषा वर्धयामसि। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
लंबोदरा गणनाथ लंबोदरा पार्वती नंदन सुभान
Chapter 14 Ratanji Vadia of Nanded, Saint Mauli Sahib, Dakshina Mimamsa. In the last chapter, we described how Baba's word and grace cured many incurable diseases. Now, we shall describe how Baba blessed Mr. Ratanji Vadia with an issue. The life of this saint is naturally sweet in and out. His various doings, eating, walking, and his natural sayings are also sweet. His life is bliss incarnate. Sai gave it out as a means of his devotees' remembrance to him. He gave them various stories of duty and action, which ultimately led them to true religion. His object may be that people should live happily in this world, but they should be ever cautious and gain the object of their life, namely self-realization. We get human body as a result of merits in past births, and it is worthwhile that with its aid, we should attain devotion and liberation in this life. So, we should never be lazy, but always be on the alert to gain our end and aim of life. If you daily hear the leelas, stories of Sai, you will always see him. Day and night, you'll remember him in your mind. When you assimilate Sai in this way, your mind will lose its fickleness, and if you go on in this manner, it will finally be merged in pure consciousness. Ratanji of Nanded. Now, let us come to the main story of this chapter. In Nanded, in the Nizam state, there lived a Parsi mill contractor and trader by name Ratanji Shapurji Vadia. He had amassed a large amount of money and had acquired fields and lands. He had got cattle, horses, and conveyances and was very prosperous. To all outward appearances, he looked very happy and contented, but inwardly and really he was not so. Providential dispensation is such that no one in this world is completely happy and rich. Ratanji was no exception to this. He was liberal and charitable, gave food and clothing to the poor and helped all in various ways. The people took him to be a good and happy man, but Ratanji thought himself miserable as he had no issue, male or female, for a long time. As kirtan, singing glories of the Lord without love or devotion, music of singing without rhythmical accompaniments, Brahmin without the sacred thread, proficiency in all arts without common sense, pilgrimage without repentance, and ornamentation without a necklace, are ugly and useless. So is a householder without an issue. Ratanji always brooded on this matter and said in his mind, "Would God be ever pleased to grant me a son? He thus looked morose, had no relish for his food. Day and night, he was enveloped with anxiety whether he would ever be blessed with a son. He had a great regard for Dasganu Maharaj. He saw him and opened his heart before him. Dasganu advised him to go to Shirdi, take Baba's darshan, fall at his feet, and seek his blessing and pray for issue. Ratanji liked the idea and decided to go to Shirdi. After some days, he went to Shirdi, took Baba's darshana and fell at his feet. Then opening a basket, he took out a beautiful garland of flowers and placed it around Baba's neck and offered him a basket of fruits. With great respect, he then sat near Baba and prayed to him, saying, "Many persons who find themselves in difficult situations come to you, and you relieve them immediately. Hearing this, I have sought anxiously your feet. Please, therefore, do not disappoint me." Sai Baba then asked him for dakshana of 5 rupees, which Ratanji intended to give, but added that he had already received 3 rupees and 14 paisa from him, and that he should pay the balance only. Hearing this, Ratanji was rather puzzled. He could not make out as to what Baba meant. That was the first time he thought that he went to Shirdi, and how was it that Baba said that he had earlier got 3 rupees and 14 paisa from him? He could not solve the riddle, but he sat at Baba's feet and gave the balance of dakshana asked for, explained to Baba fully as to why he came and sought his help, and prayed that Baba should bless him with a son. Baba was moved and told him not to be worried, and that henceforward his bad days had ended. He then gave him utti, placed his hand on his head, and blessed him, saying that Allah, God, would satisfy his heart's desire. Then, after taking Baba's leave, Ratanji returned to Nanded and told Dasganu everything that took place at Shirdi. He said that everything went on well there, that he got Baba's darshan and blessing with prasad. But there was one thing which he could not understand. Baba said to him that he had got 3 rupees and 14 paisa before. Please explain as to what Baba meant by this remark. He said to Dasganu, "I never went to Shirdi before, and how could I give him the sum to which Baba referred?" To Dasganu also it was a puzzle, and he pondered much over it for a long time. Some time afterwards, it struck him that Ratanji had received some days ago a Mohammedan saint by name Mauli Sahib in his house and had spent some money for his reception. This Mauli Sahib was a well-known saint to the people of Nanded. When Ratanji decided to go to Shirdi, this Mauli Sahib accidentally came to Ratanji's house. Ratanji knew him and loved him, so he gave a small party in his honor. Dasganu got from Ratanji the yadi or memo of expenses of this reception, and everybody was wonderstruck to see that the expenses amounted to exactly 3 rupees and 14 paisa, nothing more, nothing less. They all came to know that Baba was omniscient, that though he lived in Shirdi, he knew what happened outside, far away from Shirdi. In fact, he knew the past, present, and future, and could identify himself heart and soul with anybody. In this particular instance, how could he know the reception given to Mauli Sahib and the amount spent therefore, unless he could identify himself with him and be one with him? Ratanji was satisfied with his explanation, and his faith in Baba was confirmed and increased. In due time afterwards, he was blessed with a son, and his joy knew no bounds. It is said that he had in all a dozen issues, out of which only 4 survived. In a footnote towards the end of this chapter, it is stated that Baba told Rao Bahadur Hari Vinayak Sathya, after the death of his first wife, to remarry, and that he would get a son. R.B. Sathya married second time. The first two issues by this wife were daughters, and he, therefore, felt very despondent. But the third issue was a son. Baba's word did turn out true, and he was satisfied. Dakshina Mimansa. Now, we shall close this chapter with a few remarks about Dakshina. It is a well-known fact that Baba always asked for Dakshina from people who went to see him. Somebody may ask a question. If Baba was a fakir and perfectly non-attached, why should he ask for Dakshina and care for money? We shall consider this question broadly now. First, for a long time, Baba did not accept anything. He stored burnt matches and filled his pockets with them. He never asked anything from anybody, whether he be a devotee or otherwise. If anybody placed before him a pice or two, he purchased oil or tobacco. He was fond of tobacco, for he always smoked a biddi or chilim, an earthen pipe. Then, some persons thought that they could not see the saint empty-handed, and they, therefore, placed some copper coins before Baba. If a pice was placed before him, he used to pocket it. If it was a 2-pice coin, it was returned immediately. Then, after Baba's fame had spread far and wide, people began to flock in numbers, and Baba began to ask Dakshina from them. It is said in the Shruti, Veda, that puja of the gods is not complete unless a golden coin was offered. If a coin was necessary in the puja of the gods, why should it be not so in the puja of the saints also? Ultimately, the Shastras laid it down that when one goes to see God, king, saint, or guru, he should not go empty-handed. He should offer something, preferably coin or money. In this connection, we may notice the precepts recommended by the Upanishads. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that the Lord Prajapati advised the gods, men, and demons by one letter, Da. The gods understood by this letter that they should practice 1. Dharma, i.e. self-control. The men thought or understood that they should practice 2. Dana, i.e. charity. The demons understood that they should practice 3. Daya, i.e. compassion. To men, charity or giving was recommended. The teacher in the Taittiriya Upanishad exhorts his pupils to practice charity and other virtues. Regarding charity, he says, give with faith, give with magnanimity, i.e. liberally, give with modesty, with awe, and with sympathy. In order to teach the devotees the lesson of charity and to remove their attachment to money, and thus to purify their minds, Baba extracted Dakshina from them. But there was this peculiarity, as Baba said, that he had to give back 100 times more of what he received. There are many instances in which this has happened. To quote as instance, Mr. Ganpatra Bodhas, the famous actor, says in his Marathi autobiography that on Baba's pressing him often and often for Dakshina, he emptied his money bag before him. The result of this was, as Mr. Bodhas says, that in later life he never lacked money, as it came to him abundantly. There were also secondary meanings of Dakshina, in many cases in which Baba did not want any pecuniary amount. To quote 2 instances, 1. Baba asked 15 rupees as Dakshina from Pro G.G. Nak, who replied that he did not have even a pie. Then Baba said, I know you have no money, but you are reading Yoga Vashishta. Give me Dakshina from that. Giving Dakshina in this case meant deriving lessons from the book and lodging them in the hut where Baba resides. 2. In the second case, Baba asked a certain lady, Mrs. R.A. Tharkad, to give 6 rupees as dakshina. The lady felt pained as she had nothing to give. Then her husband explained to her that Baba wanted 6 inner enemies, lust, anger, avarice, etc., to be surrendered to him. Baba agreed with this explanation. It is to be noted that though Baba collected a lot of money by dakshina, he would distribute the whole amount the same day, and the next morning he would become a poor fakir as usual. When Baba took his Mahasamadhi, after receiving thousands and thousands of rupees as dakshina for about 10 years, he had only a few rupees in his possession. In short, Baba's main object in taking dakshina from his devotees was to teach them the lessons of renunciation and purification. Postscript. Mr. B.V. Dio of Thana, retired Mamlatdar and a great devotee of Baba, has written an article on this subject, Dakshina, in Shirdi Sai Leela magazine, volume 7, page 6-26, in which he says, amongst other things, as follows. Baba did not ask dakshina from all. If some gave dakshina without being asked, he sometimes accepted it, and at other times he refused it. He asked it from certain devotees only. He never demanded it from those devotees who thought in their minds that Baba should ask them for it and that they should pay for it. If anybody offered it against his wish, he never touched it. And if he kept it there, he asked him to take it away. He asked for small or big amounts from devotees, according to their wish, devotion, and convenience. He asked it even from women and children. He never asked all the rich for it, nor from all the poor. Baba never got angry with those from whom he asked dakshina and who did not give it. If any dakshina was sent through some friend who forgot to hand over the same to Baba, he reminded him somehow of it and made him pay it. On some occasions, Baba used to return some sum from the amount tendered as dakshina and ask the donor to guard it or keep it in his shrine for worship. This procedure benefited the donor or devotee immensely. If anybody offered more than he originally intended to give, he returned the extra amount. Sometimes he asked more dakshina from some than what they originally intended to give, and if they had no money, asked them to get or borrow from others. From some, he demanded dakshina 3 or 4 times a day. Out of the amount collected as dakshina, Baba spent very little for his own sake, namely for buying chilim, clay pipe, and fuel for his dunni, sacred fire, and all the rest he distributed as charity in varying proportions to various persons. All the paraphernalia of the Shirdi Sanisthan was brought by various rich devotees at the instance and suggestion of Radha Krishnamai. Baba always used to get wild and scolded those who brought costly and rich articles. He said to Mr. Nana Sahib Chandakur that all his property consisted of 1 kupin, codpiece, 1 stray piece of cloth, 1 kafni, and a tamro, tin pot, and that all the people troubled him by bringing all these unnecessary, useless, and costly articles. Women and wealth are the 2 main obstacles in the way of a paramatha, spiritual life, and Baba, and provided in Shirdi 2 institutions, namely Dakshina and Radha Krishnamai. Whenever they came to him, he demanded Dakshina from them and asked them to go to the school, Radha Krishnamai's house. If they stood these 2 tests well, i.e., if they showed that they were free from attachment for women and wealth, their progress in spirituality was rapid and assured by Baba's grace and blessings. Mr. Dio has also quoted passages from the Gita and Upanishads and shown that charity given in a holy place and to a holy personage conduces to the donor's welfare to a great degree. What is more holy than Shirdi and its presiding deity, Sai Baba? Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 15. Naradia Kirtan Padati, Mr. Cholka's sugarless tea, 2 lizards. The readers may remember that mention was made in the 6th chapter regarding the Rama Navami festival in Shirdi, how the festival originated and how in the early years there was a great difficulty in getting a good Haridas for performing Kirtan on that occasion, and how Baba permanently entrusted this function Kirtan to Dasganu permanently. Now, in this chapter we shall describe the manner in which Dasganu was performing the Kirtan.
Naradia Kirtan Padati. Generally, a Haridas, while performing the Kirtan, wear a gala and full dress. They put on a headdress, either a betta or a turban, a long flowing coat with a shirt inside, an upadani, short dhota, on the shoulders, and the usual long dhota from the waist below. Dressed in this fashion for some Kirtan in the Shirdi village, Dasganu once went to bow to Baba. Baba asked him, "Well, bridegroom, where are you going dressed so beautifully like this?" "For performing a Kirtan," was the reply. Then Baba said, "Why do you want all this paraphernalia? Coat, upadani and betta. Do of all that before me. Why wear them on the body?" Dasganu immediately took them off and placed them at the Baba's feet. From that time, Dasganu never wore these things while performing the Kirtan. He always bare from waist upwards a pair of chiplis within his hand and a garland round his neck. This is not in consonance with the practice generally followed by all the Haridas, but this is the best and the purest method. The sage Narada, from whom the Kirtan Padati originated, wore nothing on his trunk and head. He carried a veena in his hand and wandered from place to place, everywhere, singing the glory of the Lord.
Mr. Cholka's sugarless tea. Initially, Baba was known in Pune and Ahmednagar districts, but Nana Sahib Chandorkar by his personal talks and by Dasganu by his splendid Kirtans spread the fame of Baba in the Konkan, Bombay Presidency. In fact, it was Dasganu, may God bless him, who by his beautiful and inimitable Kirtans made Baba available to so many people there. The audience who come to hear the Kirtans have different tastes. Some are the erudition of the Haridas, some his gestures, some his singing, some his wit and humour, some his preliminary dissertation on Vedanta, and some others, his maid stories and so on. But among them there are very few, who by hearing the Kirtan get faith and devotion or love for God or saints. The effect of hearing Dasganu's Kirtan on the minds of audience was however electric, as it were. We give an instance here.
Dasganu was once making his Kirtan and singing the glory of Sai Baba in the Bhubaneswar temple in Dana. One Mr. Cholkar, a poor man serving as a temporary employee in the civil courts in Dana, was amongst the audience. He heard Dasganu's Kirtan most attentively and was much moved. He there and then mentally bowed and vowed to Baba, saying, "Baba, I am a poor man, unable to support my family. If by your grace I pass the departmental examination and get a permanent post, I shall go to Shirdi, fall at your feet and distribute sugar candy in your name." As good luck would have it, Mr. Cholkar did pass the examination and did get the permanent post, and now it remained for him to fulfill his vow. The sooner the better. Mr. Cholkar was a poor man with a large family to support, and he could not afford to pay for the expenses of a Shirdi trip. As is well said, one can easily cross over Nanegath in Thana district, or even the Shayadri range, but it is very difficult for a poor man to cross Umbariga, that is the threshold of his house. As Mr. Cholkar was anxious to fulfill his vow as early as possible, he resolved to economize, cut down his expenses and save money. He determined not to use sugar in his diet and began to take his tea without it. After he was able to save some money in this way, he came to Shirdi, took Baba's darshan, fell at his feet, offered a coconut, distributed it with a clear conscience along with sugar candy as per his vow, and said to Baba that he was much pleased with his darshan and that his desires were fulfilled that day. Mr. Cholkar was in the masjid with his friend Abu Sahib Jog. When the host and the guests both got up and were about to leave the masjid, Baba spoke to Jog as follows.
Give him, your guest, cups of tea, fully saturated with sugar. Hearing these significant words, Mr. Jolka was much moved. He was wonderstruck. His eyes were bedewed with tears, and he felt at Baba's feet again. Mr. Jog was also curious about this direction, regarding the teacups to be given to his guest. Baba wanted, by his words, to create faith and devotion in Jolka's mind. He hinted, as it were, that he got the sugar candy as per his vow, and that he knew full well his secret determination not to use sugar in his diet. Baba meant to say, if you spread your palms with devotion before me, I am immediately with you, day and night. Though I am here bodily, still I know what you do, beyond the 7 seas. Go wherever you will, over the wide world. I am with you. My abode is in your heart, and I am within you. Always worship me, who is seated in your heart, as well as in the hearts of all beings. Blessed and fortunate indeed is he who knows me thus. What a beautiful and important lesson was thus imparted by Baba to Mr. Jolka.
2 lizards. Now, we close this chapter with the story of 2 little lizards. Once Baba was sitting in the masjid, a devotee sat in front of him when a lizard tick-ticked. Out of curiosity, the devotee asked Baba whether this tick-ticking of the lizard signified anything. Was it a good sign or a bad omen? Baba said that the lizard was overjoyed as a sister from Aurangabad was coming to see her. The devotee sat silent, not making out the meaning of Baba's words. Immediately, a gentleman from Aurangabad came on horseback to see Baba. He wanted to proceed further, but his horse would not go, as it was hungry and wanted grounds. He took out a bag from his shoulders to bring grounds and dashed it on the ground to remove dirt. A lizard came out therefrom, and in the presence of all, climbed up the wall. Baba asked the questioner devotee to mark her well. She at once went strutting to her sister. Both sisters met each other after a long time, kissed and embraced each other, whirled round and danced with love. Where is Shirdi and where is Aurangabad? How should the man on horseback come there from Aurangabad with the lizard? And how should Baba make the prophecy of the meeting of the 2 sisters? All this is really very wonderful and proves the omniscience, the all-knowing nature of Baba. Postscript. He who respectfully reads this chapter or studies it daily will get all his miseries removed by the grace of the Shirdi Sai Baba. Hence, bow to Shirdi Sai, peace be to all.
Chapters 16 and 17, Quick Brahma Gnan. These 2 chapters relate the story of a rich gentleman who wanted Brahma Gnan quickly from Sai Baba. Preliminary. The last chapter described how Mr. Cholka's vow of small offering was completed and accepted. In that story, Sai Baba showed that he would accept with appreciation any small thing offered with love and devotion. But if the same thing was offered with pride and haughtiness, he would reject it. Being himself full of Satchit Ananda, that's existence, knowledge and bliss, he did not care much for more outward formalities, but if an offering was made in meek and humble spirit, the same was welcome, and he accepted it with pleasure and avidity. In fact, there is no person more liberal and benevolent than a Sadguru, like Sai Baba. He cannot be compared to the Chintamani jewel, that's the philosopher's stone, which satisfies desires. The Kalpatru, the celestial tree which fulfills our desires, or the Kamdenu, the celestial cow which yields what we desire. For they give us only what we desire, but the Sadguru gives us the most precious thing that is inconceivable and inscrutable. That is the reality. Now let us hear how Sai Baba disposed of a rich man who came to him and implored him to give him Brahmagnan. There was a rich gentleman, unfortunately his name and whereabouts are not mentioned, who was very prosperous in his life. He had amassed a large quantity of wealth, houses, field and lands, and had many servants and dependents. When Baba's fame reached his ears, he said to a friend of his that he was not in want of anything, and so he would go to Shirdi and ask Baba to give him Brahmagnan. which, if he got, would certainly make him more happy. His friend dissuaded him, saying, "It is not easy to know Brahman, and especially so for a various man like you, who is always engrossed in wealth, wife, and children. Who will, in your quest of Brahmagnan, satisfy you that won't give away even a paisa in charity?" Not minding his friend's advice, the fellow engaged a return journey by horse-drawn carriage and came to Shirdi. He went to the masjid, saw Sai Baba, fell at his feet and said, "Baba, hearing that you show the Brahman to all who come over here without any delay, I have come here all the way from my distant place. I am much fatigued by the journey, and if I get the Brahma from you, my troubles will be well paid and rewarded." Baba then replied, "Oh, my dear friend, do not be anxious. I shall immediately show you the Brahman. All my dealings are in cash and never on credit. So many people come to me and ask for wealth, health, power, honor, position, cure of diseases, and other temporal matters. Rare is the person who comes here to me and asks for Brahmagnan. There is no dearth of persons asking for worldly things, but as persons interested in spiritual matters are very rare, I think it is a lucky and auspicious moment when persons like you come and press me for Brahmagnan. So I show to you with pleasure the Brahman with all its accompaniments and complications." Saying this, Baba started to show him the Brahman. He made him sit there and engaged him in some other talk or affair, and thus made him forget his question for the time being. Then he called a boy and told him to go to one Nandu Marwari and get from him a hand loan of 5 rupees. The boy left and returned immediately, saying that Nandu was absent and his house was locked. Baba asked him to go to Bala Grocer and get from him the said loan. This time also the boy was unsuccessful. This experiment was repeated again, twice or thrice, with the same result. Sai Baba was, as we know, the living and moving Brahman incarnate. Then someone may ask, why did he want the paltry sum of 5 rupees and why did he try hard to get it on loan? Really, he did not want that sum at all. He must have been fully knowing that Nandu and Bala were absent, and he seems to have adopted this procedure as a test for the seeker of Brahman. That gentleman had a roll or bundle of currency notes in his pocket, and if he was really earnest, he would not have sat quiet and be a mere onlooker when Baba was frantically trying to get a paltry sum of 5 rupees. He knew that Baba would keep his word and repay the debt, and that the sum wanted was insignificant. Still, he could not make up his mind and advance the sum. Such a man wanted from Baba the greatest thing in the world, that is Brahmagnan. An other man who really loved Baba would have at once given 5 rupees instead of being a mere onlooker. It was otherwise with this man. He advanced no money, nor did he sit silent, but began to be impatient as he was in a haste to return and implored Baba, saying, "Oh Baba, please show me the Brahman soon." Baba replied, "Oh my dear friend, did you not understand all the procedure that I went through, sitting in this place for enabling you to see Brahman? It is, in short, this. For seeing Brahman, one has to give 5 things. That is, surrender 5 things. That's number 1, 5 pranas, which are vital forces. Number 2, 5 senses. That's 5 of action and 5 of perception. Number 3, mind. Number 4, intellect. And 5, ego. This path of Brahmagnan, of self-realization, is as hard as the thread on the edge of a razor. Sai Baba then gave rather a long discourse on the subject, the purport of which is given below.
The qualifications for Brahmajnana or self-realization. All persons do not see or realize the Brahman in their lifetime. Certain qualifications are absolutely necessary. Number 1, mumuksha, or intense desire to get free. He who thinks that he is bound and that he should get free from bondage and works earnestly and resolutely to that end, and who does not care for any other things, is qualified for the spiritual life. Number 2, virakti, or a feeling of disgust with the things of the world, this world and the next. Unless a man feels disgusted with the things, emoluments and honors, which his action would bring in this world and the next, he has no right to enter into the spiritual realm. Number 3, antarmukata, or introversion. Our senses have been created by God with a tendency to move outward, and so man always looks outside himself and not inside. He who wants self-realization and immortal life must turn his gaze inwards and look to his inner self. Number 4, catharsis from sins, or purging away of sins. Unless a man has turned away from wickedness and stopped from doing wrong and has entirely composed himself, and unless his mind is at rest, he cannot gain self-realization, even by means of knowledge. Number 5, right conduct. Unless a man leads a life of truth, penance and insight, a life of celibacy, he cannot get God realization. Number 6, preferring shreyas, the good, to preyas, the pleasant. There are two sorts of things, i.e. the good and the pleasant. The former deals with spiritual affairs and the latter with mundane matters. Both these approach man for acceptance. He has to think and choose one of them. The wise man prefers the good to the pleasant, but the unwise, through greed and attachment, chooses the pleasant. Number 7, control of the mind and the senses. The body is the chariot and the self is its master. Intellect is the charioteer and the mind is the reins. The senses are the horses and the sense objects their paths. He who has no understanding and whose mind is unrestrained, his senses unmanageable, like the vicious horses of a charioteer, does not reach his destination or get realization, but goes through the round of births and deaths. But he who has understanding and whose mind is restrained has his senses being under control, like the good horse of a charioteer, reaches that place, i.e. the state of self-realization, whence he is not born again. The man who has understanding as his charioteer, as his guide, and is able to rein his mind, reaches the end of the journey, which is the supreme abode of the all-pervading Vishnu, the Lord. Number 8, purification of the mind. Unless a man discharges satisfactorily and disinterestedly the duties of his station in life, his mind will not be purified, and unless his mind is that viveka, discrimination between the unreal and the real, and vairagya, non-attachment to the unreal, crop up and lead on to self-realization. Unless egoism is dropped, avarice got rid of, and the mind made desireless and pure, self-realization is not possible. The idea that I am the body is a great delusion, and attachment to this idea is the cause of bondage. Leave off this idea and attachment, therefore, if you want to get to the goal of self-realization. Number 9, the necessity of a guru. The knowledge of the self is so subtle and mystic that no one could, by his own individual effort, ever hope to attain it. So help of another person, a teacher, who has himself got self-realization is absolutely necessary. What others cannot give with such great labor and pains can be easily gained with the help of such a teacher, for he has walked on the path himself and can easily take the disciple step by step on the ladder of spiritual progress. Lastly, number 10, the Lord's grace is the most essential thing. When the Lord is pleased with anybody, he gives him viveka and vairagya and takes him safe beyond the ocean of mundane existence. The self cannot be gained by the study of Vedas, nor by intellect, nor by much learning. He, whom the self chooses, gains it. To him, the self reveals its nature, says the Katha Upanishad. After the dissertation was over, Baba turned to the gentleman and said, "Well, sir, there is in your pocket the Brahma or Mammon in the form of 50 times 5, i.e. 250 rupees. Please take that out." The gentleman took out from his pocket the bundle of currency notes and to his great surprise found, on counting them, that there were 25 notes of 10 rupees each. Seeing this omniscience of Baba, he was moved and fell at Baba's feet and craved for his blessing. Then Baba said to him, "Roll up your bundle of Brahma, i.e. currency notes. Unless you get rid completely of your avarice or greed, you will not get the real Brahma. How can he, whose mind is engrossed in wealth, prodigy, and prosperity, expect to know the Brahma without removing away his attachment for the same? The illusion of attachment or the love for money is a deep eddy, a whirlpool of painful crocodiles in the form of conceit and jealousy. He who is desireless can alone cross this whirlpool. Greed and Brahma are as poles asunder. They are eternally opposed to each other. Where there is greed, there is no room for thought of meditation of the Brahma. Then how can a greedy man get dispassion and salvation? For a greedy man, there is no peace, neither contentment, nor certainty or steadiness. If there be even a little trace of greed in mind, all the sadhanas, all the spiritual endeavors are of no avail. Even the knowledge of a well-read man who is not free from the desire of the fruit or reward of his actions and who has got no disgust for the same is useless and can't help him in getting self-realization. The teachings of a guru are of no use to a man who is full of egoism and who always thinks about the sense objects. Purification of mind is absolutely necessary. Without it, all our spiritual endeavors are nothing but useless show and pomp. It is, therefore, better for one to take only what he can digest and assimilate. My treasury is full, and I can give anyone what he wants, but I have to see whether he is qualified to receive my gift. If you listen to me carefully, you will certainly be benefited. While sitting in this masjid, I never speak any untruth. When a guest is invited to a house, all the members of the household and other friends and relations that happen to be present are entertained along with the guest. So all those that were present in the masjid at this time could partake of the spiritual feast that was served by Baba for the rich gentleman. After getting Baba's blessings, one and all, including the gentleman, left the place quietly happy and contented. A special characteristic of Baba. There are many saints who, leaving their houses, stay in forests, caves, or hermitages, and remaining in solitude, try to get liberation or salvation for themselves. They do not care for other people and are always self-absorbed. Sai Baba was not of such a type. He had no home, no wife, no progeny, nor any relations near or distant. Still, he lived in the world, in society. He begged his bread from 4 or 5 houses, always lived at the foot of the neem tree, carried on worldly dealings, and taught all the people how to act and behave in this world. Rare are the sadhus and saints who, after attaining God vision, strive for the welfare of the people. Sai Baba was the foremost of these, and therefore, says Hamad Pant, blessed is the country, blessed is the family, and blessed are the chaste parents where this extraordinary, transcendent, precious, and pure jewel, Sai Baba, was born. Bow to Shirdi Sai. Peace be to all.
Chapter 18 and 19. How Hemant Pant was accepted and blessed. Stories of Mr. Sathya and Mrs. Deshmukh, encouraging good thoughts to fruition, variety in Upadesh teachings, readings, slander, and remuneration for labor. In the last 2 chapters, Hemant Pant described how a rich gentleman, aspiring for quick Brahmgyan, was treated by Baba. And now in these 2 chapters, he describes how Hemant Pant himself was accepted and blessed by Baba, how Baba encouraged good thoughts and fruitified them, and gives his teachings regarding self-improvement, slander, and remuneration for labor. Preliminary. It is a well-known fact that the Sadguru looks first to the qualifications of his disciples and then gives them suitable instructions without unsettling their minds in the least, and leads them on towards the goal of self-realization. In this respect, some say that what the Sadguru teaches or instructs should not be divulged to others. They think that their instructions become useless if they are published. This view is not correct. The Sadguru is like a monsoon cloud. He pours down profusely, i.e., scatters wildly his nectar-like teachings. These we should enjoy and assimilate to our heart's content, and then serve others with them without any reserve. The rule should apply not only to what he teaches in our waking state, but to the visions he gives us in our dreams. To quote an instance, Buddha Kaushik Rishi composed his celebrated Ram Raksha Stotra, which is a collection of couplets to invoke protection from Lord Rama, which he had seen in his dream. Like a loving mother forcing bitter but wholesome medicines down the throats of her children for the sake of their health, Sai Baba imparted spiritual instructions to his devotees. His method was not veiled or secret, but quite open. The devotees who followed his instructions got their object. Sadgurus are like Sai Baba, open our eyes of the intellect and show us the divine beauties of the self and fulfill our tender longings of devotion. When this is done, our desire for sense objects vanishes. Twin fruits of viveka, discrimination, and viraga, dispassion or non-attachment, come to our hands, and knowledge sprouts up even in the sleep. All this we get when we come in contact with saints, Sadguru, serve them and secure their love. The Lord who fulfills the desires of his devotees comes to our aid, removes our troubles and sufferings, and makes us happy. This progress or development is entirely due to the help of the Sadguru, who is regarded as the Lord himself. Therefore, we should always be after the Sadguru, hear his stories, fall at his feet and serve him. Now we come to our main story, Mr. Sathya. There was a gentleman named Mr. Sathya who had attained some publicity many years ago during Crawford's regime, which was put down by Lord Ray, the then governor of Bombay. He suffered severe losses in trade. Other adverse circumstances gave him much trouble and made him sad and dejected. Being restless, he thought of leaving home and going out to a distant place. Man does not generally think of God, but when difficulties and calamities overtake him, he turns to him and prays for relief. If these evil actions have come to an end, God arranges his meeting with a saint who gives him proper directions regarding his welfare. Mr. Sathya had similar experience. His friends advised him to go to Shirdi, where so many people were flocking to see Sai Baba's darshan, for getting peace of mind and the satisfaction of their wants. He liked the idea and at once came to Shirdi in 1917. Seeing Baba's form, which was like eternal Brahma, self-luminous, spotless and pure, his mind lost its restlessness and became calm and composed. He thought that it was the accumulation of merits in his former births that brought him to the holy feet of Baba. He was a man of strong will. He at once started to make a pranayana study of Guru Charitra. When the reading was finished in the Sapta, 7 days, Baba gave him a vision that night. It was to this effect. Baba, with Guru Charitra in his hand, was explaining its contents to Mr. Sathya, who was sitting in front and listening carefully. When he woke up, he remembered the dream and felt very happy. He thought that it was extremely kind of Baba, who awakens soul like his that are snoring in ignorance and makes them taste the nectar of Guru Charitra. Next day, he informed Kaka Sahib Dikshit of this vision. He requested him to consult Sai Baba regarding its meaning or significance, whether one saptah, week's reading, was sufficient, or whether he should begin again. Kakasab Dixit, when got a suitable opportunity, asked Baba, Deva, O God, what did you suggest to Mr. Sathya by this vision? Whether he should stop or continue the saptah. He is a simple devotee. His desire should be fulfilled. And the vision explained to him, and he should be blessed. Then Baba replied, he should make one more saptah of the book. If the work be studied carefully, the devotee will become pure and will be benefited. The Lord will be pleased and will rescue him from the bondage of the mundane existence. At this time, Hemant Pant was present there. He was shampooing Baba's legs. When he heard Baba's words, he thought in his mind as follows, what? Mr. Sathya read for a week only and got a reward, and I am reading it for 40 years with no result. His 7 days stay here becomes fruitful, while my 7 years stay, 1910 to 1917, goes for nothing. Like a chatak bird, I am ever waiting for the merciful cloud, Baba, to pour its nectar on me and bless me with his instructions. No sooner did this thought cross his mind, Baba knew it there and then. It was the experience of the Bhaktas that Baba read and understood all their thoughts, and that he suppressed the evil thoughts and encouraged the good ones. Reading Hemant Pant's mind, Baba at once asked him to get up, go to Shama, Madhavrao Deshpande, get from him ₹15 as dakshina, sit and chit-chat with him for a while, and then return. Mercy dawned in Baba's mind, and so he issued this order. And who could disobey Baba's order? Hemant Pant immediately left the masjid and came to Shama's house. He had just bathed and wearing a dhotha. He came out and asked Hemant Pant, how is it that you are here now? It seems that you have come from the masjid. Why do you look restless and dejected? Why are you alone? Please sit and rest while I shall do my worship and return. In the meanwhile, you please take panvida, leaves and betel nuts, etc. Let us then have a pleasant chat. After saying this, he went inside and Hemant Pant sat alone in the front veranda. He saw in the window a well-known Marathi book called Nath Bhagavad. This is a commentary by Saint Ekanath on the 11th skanda, chapter of the bigger Sanskrit work, the Bhagavad. At the suggestion of or recommendation of Sai Baba, Messrs. Bapu Sahib, Jog and Kaka Sahib Dikshit read daily in Shirdi Bhagavad Gita with its Marathi commentary named Bhavartha Deepika or Janeshwari, a dialogue between Krishna and his friend devotee Arjuna, and Nath Bhagavad, a dialogue between Krishna and his servant devotee Uddhava, and also Eknath's other big work, viz. Bhavartha Ramayana. When devotees came to Baba and asked him certain questions, he sometimes answered them in part and asked them to go and listen to the readings of the above-mentioned works, which are the main treatise of Bhagavad Dharma. When the devotees went and listened, they got full and satisfactory replies to their questions. Hemant Pant also used to read daily some portions of the book in Nath Bhagavad. That day, he did not complete the daily portion of his reading, but had left it unfinished in order to accompany certain devotees who were going to the masjid. When he took up the book from Shama's window and casually opened it, he found to his surprise that the unfinished portion turned up. He thought that Baba sent him very kindly to Shama's house for enabling him to complete his daily reading. So he went through the unfinished portion and completed it. As soon as this was over, Shama, after doing his worship, came out, and the following conversation took place between them. Hemant Pant, I have come with a message from Baba. He has asked me to return with 15 rupees as dakshina from you, also to sit with you for a while and have a pleasant chit-chat, and then return to the masjid with you. Shama with surprise, I have no money to give. Take my 15 namaskaras, bows, in lieu of rupees as dakshina to Baba. Hemant, all right, your namaskaras are accepted. Now let us have some chit-chat. Tell me some stories and leelas of Baba, which will destroy our sins. Shama, then sit here for a while. Wonderful is this sport, leela of this god Baba. You know it already. I'm a village rustic, while you are an enlightened citizen. You have seen some more leelas since your coming here. How should I describe them before you? Well, take these leaves, betel nut and chuman, and eat the panvita, while I go in, dress myself, and come out. In a few minutes, Shama came out and sat talking with Hemant. He said, the leela of this god, Baba, is inscrutable. There is no need to his leelas who can see them. He plays or sports with his leelas. Still, he is outside of, unaffected by them. What do we rustics know? Why does not Baba himself tell stories? Why does he send learned men like you to fools like me? His ways are inconceivable. I can only say that they are not human. With a preface, Shama added, I now remember a story which I shall relate to you. I know it personally. As a devotee irresolute and determined, so is Baba's immediate response. Sometimes Baba puts the devotees to severe test and then gives them upadesh instructions. As soon as Hemant heard the word upadesh, a flash of lightning crossed through his mind. He at once remembered the story of Mr. Satya's Guru Charitra reading and thought that Baba might have sent him to Shama in order to give peace to his restless mind. However, he curbed this feeling and began to listen to Shama's stories. They all showed how kind and affectionate Baba was to his devotees. Hemant began to feel a sort of joy while hearing them. Then Shama began to tell the following story.
Shirdi Sai धरती के बाबा शिरडी के साए धरती के बाबा शिरडी के साए धरती के बाबा शिरडी के साए धरती के
Mrs. Radhabai Deshmukh. There was an old lady by name Radhabai. She was the mother of one Kashyapa Deshmukh. Hearing Baba's fame, she came to Shirdi with the people of Sangama. She took Baba's darshan and was much satisfied. She loved Baba intimately and resolved in her mind that she should accept Baba as her guru and take some Upanishad from him. She knew nothing else. She determined to fast herself to death so long as Baba did not accept her and give her any upadesh or mantra. She stayed in her lodgings and left off taking food or water for 3 days. I was frightened by this ordeal of the old woman and interceded with Baba on her behalf. I said, Deva, what is this you have started? You drag so many persons here. You know that old lady. She is very obstinate and depends on you entirely. She has resolved to fast unto death if you don't accept and instruct her. If anything worse happens, people will blame you and say that Baba did not instruct her, and consequently she met her death. So take some mercy on her, bless her and instruct her. On seeing her determination, Baba sent for her, changed the turn of her mind by addressing her as follows. O Mother, Baba always lovingly addressed women as mothers and men as Kaka or Bapu. Baba said, O Mother, why are you subjecting yourself to unnecessary tortures and hastening your death? You are really my mother, and I am your child. Take pity on me and hear me through. I tell you my own story, which, if you listen carefully, will do you good. I had a guru. He was a great saint and most merciful. I served him long, very long. Still, he would not blow any mantra into my ears. I had a keen desire never to leave him, but to stay and serve him. And at all costs receive some instructions from him. But he had his own way. He first got my head shaved and asked me 2 paisa as dakshina. I gave the same to him. If you say that as my guru was perfect, why should he ask for money? And how should he be called desireless? I replied plainly that he never cared for coins. What had he to do with them? His 2 paisa were firm faith and patience or perseverance. I gave these 2 paisa or things to him, and he was pleased. I resorted to my guru for 12 years. He brought me up. There was no dearth of food and clothing. He was full of love. Nay, he was love incarnate. How can I describe it? He loved me most. Rare is a guru like him. When I looked at him, he seemed as if he was in deep meditation, and then we both were filled with bliss. Night and day I gazed at him with no thought of hunger and thirst. Without him, I felt restless. I had no other object to meditate, nor any other thing than my guru to attend. He was my sole refuge. My mind was always fixed on him. This is one paisa dakshina, saburi. Patience and perseverance is the other paisa. I waited patiently and very long on my guru and served him. This saburi will ferry you across the sea of this mundane existence. Saburi is a manliness in main. It removes all sins and afflictions, gets rid of calamities in various ways, and casts aside all fear, and ultimately gives you success. Saburi is the mine of virtues, concert of good thought. Nishtha, faith, and saburi, patience, are like twin sisters, loving each other very intimately. My guru never expected any other thing from me. He never neglected me, but protected me at all times. I lived with him and was sometimes away from him. Still, I never felt the want or absence of his love. He always protected me by his glance, just as the tortoise feeds her young ones, whether they are near her or away from her on the other side of the riverbank, by her loving looks. Oh, mother, my guru never taught me any mantra. Then how shall I blow any mantra in your ears? Just remember that guru's tortoise-like loving glance gives us happiness. Do not try to get mantra or upanishads from anybody. Make me the sole object of your thoughts and actions, and you will no doubt attain Paramatma, the spiritual goal of life. Look at me wholeheartedly, and I in turn look at you similarly. Sitting in this masjid, I speak the truth, nothing but the truth. No sadhanas, no proficiency in the 6 shastras are necessary. Have faith and confidence in your guru. Believe fully that guru is the sole actor or doer. Blessed is he who knows the greatness of his guru and thinks him to be Hari, Hara, and Brahma. Trimurti incarnate. Instructed in this way, the old lady was convinced. She bowed to Baba and gave up her fast. Hearing this story carefully and attentively, and marking its significance and appropriateness, Hemant Pant was most agreeably surprised. Seeing this wonderful leela of Baba, he was moved from top to toe. He was overflowing with joy. His throat was choked, and he was not able to utter a single word. Shama, on seeing him in this condition, asked him, "What is the matter with you? Why are you silent?" How many innumerable leelas of Baba shall I describe? And just at that time, the bell in the masjid began to ring, proclaiming that the noon worship and Aarti ceremony had begun. Therefore, Shama and Hemant Pant hurried to the masjid. Bapu Sahib Jog had just started the worship. Women were up in the masjid and men were standing below in the open courtyard, and they were all loudly singing the Aarti in chorus to the accompaniment of drums. Shama went up, pulling Hemant Pant with him. He sat to the right of Hemant Pant in front of Baba. On seeing them, Baba asked Hemant Pant to give the dakshina brought from Shama. He replied that Shama gave namaskaras in lieu of rupees and that he was there in person. Baba said, "All right, now let me know whether you both had a chit-chat, and if so, tell me all that you have talked about." Not minding the sounds of the bell, the drum, and the chorus songs, Hemant Pant was eager to tell what they had talked and started to narrate it. Baba was also anxious to hear, and so he left the bolster and leaned forward. Hemant Pant said all that they talked about was very pleasant, and that especially the story of the old lady was most wonderful, and that on hearing it, he thought that his leela was inexplicable, and under the guise of that story, he really blessed him. Baba then said, "Wonderful is the story. How were you blessed? I would like to know everything in detail from you. Tell me about it." Then Hemant Pant related in full the story which he had heard a little while before, and which had made a lasting impression on his mind. Hearing this, Baba was much pleased and asked him, "Did the story strike you, and did you catch its significance?" He replied, "Yes, Baba. The restlessness of my mind has vanished, and I've got true peace and rest, and come to know the true path." Then Baba spoke as follows: "My method is quite unique. Remember well this one story, and it will be very useful. To get the knowledge, realization of the self, dhyana, meditation is necessary. If you practice it continuously, the riddhis, thoughts, will be pacified. Being quite desireless, you should meditate on the Lord. who is in all the creatures. And when the mind is concentrated, the goal will be achieved. Meditate always on my formless nature, which is knowledge incarnate, consciousness and bliss. If you cannot do this, meditate on my form from top to toe as you see here night and day. As you go on doing this, your riddhis will concentrate on one point, and the distinction between the dhyaka, meditator, and dhyana, act of meditation, dhyaya, this meditated upon, will be lost, and the mediator will be the one with the consciousness and be merged in the Brahma. The mother tortoise is on one bank of the river, and her young one are on the other side. She gives neither milk nor warmth to them. Her mere glance gives them nutrition. The young ones do nothing but remember, meditate upon their mother. The tortoise glance is, to the young ones, a downpour of nectar, the only source of sustenance and happiness. Similar is the relation between the Guru and the disciples. When Baba uttered these words, the chorus of the Aarti song stopped, and all cried out loudly on one voice, "Victory be to our Satguru Sai Maharaj, who is existence, knowledge and bliss." Dear readers, let us imagine that we are at this time standing amongst the crowd in the masjid, and let us join them in this Jayakar. After the Aarti ceremony was over, prasad was distributed. Baba Sahib Jog advanced as usual, and after saluting Baba, gave into his hand a handful of sugar candy. Baba pushed all this quantity into the hands of Hemant Pant and said to him, "If you take this story to heart and remember it well, your state will be sweet as the sugar candy. All your desires will be fulfilled and you will be happy." Hemant Pant bowed before Baba and implored, "Do favor me like this. Bless and protect me always." Baba replied, "Hear this story, meditate on it, and assimilate its spirit. Then you will always remember and meditate on the Lord, who will manifest himself to you." Dear readers, Hemant Pant got prasad of sugar candy then, and we now get the prasad of sugar candy or nectar of the story. Let us drink it to our heart's content, meditate on it, and assimilate it, and be strong and happy by Baba's grace. Amen. Towards the end of the 19th chapter, Hemant Pant had dealt with some other matters which are given below. Baba's advice regarding our behavior. The following words of Baba are general and invaluable. If they are kept in mind and acted upon, they will always do you good. Unless there is some relationship or connection, nobody goes anywhere. If any men or creatures come to you, you do discourteously drive them away, but receive them well and treat them with due respect. Sri Hari, God, will be certainly pleased. If you give water to the thirsty, bread to the hungry, clothes to the naked, and your veranda to strangers for sitting and resting. If anybody wants any money from you and you're not inclined to give, do not give, but do not bark at them like a dog. Let anybody speak hundreds of things against you. Do not resent by giving any bitter reply. If you always tolerate such things, you will certainly be happy. Let the world go topsy-turvy. You remain where you are, standing or staying in your own place. Look on calmly at the show of all things passing before you. Demolish the wall of difference that separates you from me. And then the road for our meeting will be clear and open. The sense of differentiation, as I and thou, is the barrier that keeps away the disciple from his master. And unless that is destroyed, the state of union or atonement is not possible. Allah Malik, i.e. God is the sole proprietor. Nobody else is our protector. His method of work is extraordinary, invaluable, and inscrutable. His will be done, and he will show us the way and satisfy our heart's desires. It is on account of Renauband, former relationship, that we have come together. Let us love and serve each other and be happy. He who attained the supreme goal of life is immortal and happy. All others merely exist, i.e., live as long as they breathe. Encouraging good thoughts of fruition. It is interesting to note how Sai Baba encouraged good thoughts. You have to surrender yourself completely to him with love and devotion, and you will see how. He helps you off and on in so many things. Some saint has said that when you get a good thought immediately after awakening from sleep, and if you develop the same afterwards during the day, your intellect will be unfolded and your mind will attain calmness. Hemant wanted to try this. On one Wednesday night before going to bed, he thought, tomorrow is Thursday, an auspicious day, and the place with Shirdi is so holy. So let me pass the whole day in remembering and chanting the Rama Nama. And then he slept. Next morning, when he got up, he remembered without any effort the name of Rama and was much pleased. He then, after finishing his morning duties, went to see Baba with flowers. When he left Dikshit's Wada and was just passing Bhutti's Wada, present Samadhi Mandir, he heard a beautiful song that was being sung nicely by one Aurangabadkar in the masjid before Baba. The song was Guru Kirpajan Payo Mere Bhai, etc. by Ekanath, in which he says that he got colorum in the form of Guru's grace, which opened his vision and made him see Rama in and out, in sleep, dream, and waking state, and everywhere. There were so many songs. And why was this song particularly chosen by Aurangabadkar, a devotee of Baba? Is this not a curious coincidence arranged by Baba to feed the determination of Hemant to sing unceasingly Ram Nama during the day? All saints agree and lay stress upon the efficacy of uttering Rama's, God's name, in fulfilling the ambitions of the Bhaktas and in protecting and saving them from all calamities. Variety in Upadesh, slanderer condemned. Sai Baba required no special place, nor any special place for giving instructions. Whenever any occasion demanded, he gave them freely. Once it so happened that a Bhakta of Baba reviled another behind his back before other people. On leaving aside merits, he dwelt on the faults of his brother and spoke sarcastically that the hearers were disgusted. Generally, we see that people have a tendency to scandalize others unnecessarily, and this brings on hatred and ill will. Saints see scandal in another light. They say that there are various ways of cleansing or removing dirt, viz., by means of earth, water, and soap, etc. But a scandalmonger has got a way of his own. He removes the dirt, faults of others by his tongue, so in a way of obliges the person whom he reviles, and for this he is to be thanked. Sai Baba had his own method of correcting the scandalmonger. He knew by his omniscience what the slanderer had done, and when he met at near the Landi, Baba pointed out to him a pig that was eating filth near the fence and said to him, "Behold, how, with what relish, it is gorging dung. Your conduct is similar. You go on reviling your own brethren to your heart's content. After performing many deeds of merit, you are born a man, and if you act like this, Will Shirdi help you in any way? Needless to say that the Bhakta took the lesson to his heart and went away. In this way, Baba went on giving instructions wherever necessary. If these are born in our mind and acted upon, the spiritual goal, realization, it is not far off. There is a proverb which says, if there be my Hari, Lord, he will feed me on my cot. The proverb is only true in respect of food and clothing. But if anyone trusting in this sits quiet and does nothing in spiritual matters, he will be ruined. One has to exert himself to his utmost for attaining self-realization. The more he endeavors, the better for him. Baba said he was omnipresent, occupying land, air, country, world, light, and heaven, and that he was not limited. To remove the misunderstanding of those who thought that Baba was only his body, 3 cubits and a half in length, he incarnated himself in this form, and if any devotee meditated on him day and night with complete self-surrender, he experienced complete union without any difference with him, like sweetness and sugar, waves and sea, eye and its luster. He who wants to get rid of the cycle of births and deaths should lead a righteous life with his mind calm and composed. He should always engage himself in good actions, should do his duties and surrender himself, heart and soul, to him. He need not then be afraid of anything. He who trusts him entirely, hears and expounds his leelas, and does not think of anything else, is sure to attain self-realization. Baba asked many to remember his name and to surrender to him, but to those who wanted to know who they were, who am I, inquiry, he advised Shravanam, study, and Mananam, meditation. To some he advised remembering God's name, to others hearing his leelas, to some worship of his feet, to others reading and studying Adhyatham Ramayanam, Janeshwari, and other sacred scriptures. Some he made sit near his feet, some he sent to the Khandoba's temple, and some he advised the repetition of the thousands names of Vishnu, and some the study of Chandogya, Upanishad, and Gita. There were no limit nor restriction to his instructions. To some, he gave them in person, to others by visions and dreams. To one addicted to drink, he appeared in his dream, sat on his chest, pressed it, and left him, after he gave a promise not to touch liquor anymore. To some, he explained some mantras like Guru Brahma in dreams. To some devotees who was practicing Hatha Yoga, he sent word that he should leave off Hatha Yoga practices, sit quiet and wait, saburi. It is impossible to describe all his ways and methods. In ordinary worldly dealings, he set examples by his actions, one of which is given below. Remuneration for labor. One day at noon, Baba came near Radha Krishna Mai's house and said, "Bring me a ladder." Some men brought it and set it against a house as directed by Baba. He climbed up on the roof of Vaman Gondkar's house, passed the roof of Radha Krishna Mai's house, and then got down from the other corner. What object Baba had, none could know. Radha Krishna Mai was at that time shivering with malaria. It may be to drive off that fever that he may have gone there. Immediately after getting down, Baba paid ₹2 to the persons who brought the letter. Somebody asked Baba why he paid so much for this. He replied that nobody should take the labor of others in vain. The worker should be paid his dues promptly and liberally. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all.
Chapter 20.
भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्
Chapter 20. Das Ganu's problem solved by Kaka's maid servant. In this chapter, Hemad Pant describes how Das Ganu's problem was solved by Kaka Sahib Dikshit's maid servant. Preliminary. Sai, Lord was originally formless. He assumed a form for the sake of bhaktas. With the help of the actress Maya, he played the part of the actor in the big drama of the universe. Let us remember and visualize Sri Sai. Let us go to Shirdi and see carefully the programs after the noon arati. After the arati ceremony was over, Sai used to come out of the masjid and standing on his edge distribute uddi to the devotees with very kind and loving looks. The bhaktas got up with equal fervor, clasped his feet, and standing and staring at him, enjoyed the shower of uddi. Baba passed handfuls of uddi into the palms of the devotees and marked their foreheads with uddi with his fingers. The love he bore for them in his heart was boundless. Then he addressed the bhaktas as follows: O Bhau, go to take your lunch. You Anna, go to your lodgings. You Bapu, enjoy your dishes. In this way, he accosted each and every devotee and sent them home. Even now, you can enjoy these sights if you bring into play your imagination. You can visualize and enjoy them. Now, bringing Sai before our mental vision, let us meditate on him from his feet upwards to his face, and prostrating before him humbly, lovingly, and respectfully revert to the story of this chapter. Isha Upanishad. Das Ganu once started to write a Marathi commentary on the Isha Upanishad. Let us first give a brief idea of this Upanishad before proceeding further. It is called a Mantra Upanishad as it is embodied in the mantras of the Vedic Samhita. It constitutes the last or the 40th chapter of the Vajrayana Samhita, that is Yajurveda, and it is therefore called Vajrayana Samhita Upanishad. Being embodied in Vedic Samhitas, this is regarded as superior to all other Upanishads which occur in the Brahmanas and Aranyakas, that is explanatory treatises on mantras and rituals. Not only this, other Upanishads are considered to be commentaries on the truths mentioned briefly in the Usha Upanishad. For instance, the biggest of the Upanishad, that is the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad, is considered by Pandit Satwalikar to be a running commentary on the Isha Upanishad. Professor R.D. Ranade says the Isha Upanishad is quite a small Upanishad, yet it contains many hints which show an extraordinarily piercing insight. Within the short compass of 18 verses, it gives a valuable mystical description of the Atman, a description of the ideal sage who stands unruffled in the minds of temptations and sorrows, and adumberation of the doctrine of Karma Yoga as later formulated, and finally, a reconciliation of the claims of knowledge and works. The most valuable ideas that lies at the root of the Upanishad is that of a logical synthesis between the two opposites of knowledge and work, which are both required, according to the Upanishad, to be annulled in a high synthesis. In another place, he says that the poetry of the Upanishad is a common mixture of moral, mystical, and metaphysical. From the brief description given above about this Upanishad, anyone can see how difficult it is to translate this Upanishad in a vernacular language and brief out its exact meaning. Das Ganu translated it in Marathi OV meter verse by verse, but as he did not comprehend the gist or essence of the Upanishad, he was not satisfied with his performance. He therefore consulted some learned men regarding his doubts and difficulties and discussed with them at great length. They did not solve them, nor did they give him any rational and satisfactory explanation. So Das Ganu was a little restless over this matter. Sadguru only competent and qualified to explain. As we have seen, this Upanishad is the quintessence of the Vedas. It is the science of self-realization. It is the scythe or weapon which can rend asunder the bondage of life and death and make us free. Therefore, he thought that he who has himself attained self-realization can only give him the true or correct interpretation of the Upanishad. When nobody could satisfy Dasganu, he resolved to consult Sai Baba about this. When he got an opportunity to go to Shirdi, he saw Sai Baba, prostrated himself before him, and mentioned his difficulties about the Isha Upanishad and requested him to give the correct solution. Sai Baba blessed him and said, "You need not be anxious. There is no difficulty about the matter. The maid servant of Kaka Sahib Dikshit will solve your doubts at Villeparle on your way home." The people who were present then and heard this thought that Baba was joking and said, "How could an illiterate maid servant solve the difficulties of this nature?" But Dasganu thought otherwise. He was sure that whatever Baba spoke must come true. Baba's word was the decree of the Brahman Almighty. Kaka's maid servant. On fully believing in Baba's words, he left Shirdi and came to Villeparle, a suburb of Bombay, and stayed with Kaka Sahib Dikshit there the next day, when Dasganu was enjoying his morning nap. Some say when he was engaged in worship, he heard a poor girl singing a beautiful song in clear and melodious tones. The subject matter of the song was a crimson-colored sari. How nice it was, how fine was its embroidery, how beautiful were its ends and borders, etc. He liked the song so much that he came out and saw that it was being sung by a young girl, the sister of Namya, who was a servant of Kaka Sahib. The girl was cleaning vessels and had only a torn rag on her person. On seeing her impoverished condition and her jovial temperament, Dasganu felt pity for her, and when Rao Bahadur M.V. Pradhan next day gave him a pair of dotars, he requested him to give a sari to the poor little girl also. Rao Bahadur bought a good chirdi, a small sari, and presented it to her. Like a starving person getting luckily good dishes to eat, her joy knew no bounds. Next day, she wore the new sari and out of great joy and merriment, whirled, danced round and played fugadi with other girls and excelled them all. The following day, she kept the new sari in her box at home and came with the old and torn rags, but she looked as merry as she did the previous day. On seeing this, Dasganu's pity was transferred into admiration. He thought that the girl being poor had to wear a torn rag, but now she had a new sari which she kept in reserve, and putting on the old rag, strutted herself, showing no trace of sorrow or dejection. Thus he realized that all our feelings of pain and pleasure depend upon the attitude of our mind. On thinking deeply over this incident, he realized that a man ought to enjoy whatever God has bestowed on him in the firm conviction that he besets everything from behind and above and on all sides, and that whatever is bestowed on him by God must be for his good. In this particular case, the impoverished condition of the poor girl, her torn rag, the new sari, the donor, the dance, and the acceptance were all parts of the Lord and pervaded by him. Hence, Dasganu got a practical demonstration of the lesson of the Upanishad, that is, the lesson of contentment with one's own lot in the belief that whatever happens is ordained by God and is ultimately good for us. Unique method of teaching. From the above incident, the reader will see that Baba's method was unique and varied. Though Baba never left Shirdi, he sent some to Machindragarh, some to Kolhapur or Sholapur for practicing sadhanas. To some he appeared in his usual form, to some he appeared in waking or dreaming state, day or night, and satisfied their desires. It is impossible to describe all the methods that Baba used in imparting instructions to his bhaktas. In this particular case, he sent Dasganu to Villeparle, where he got his problem solved through the maid servant. To those who say that it was not necessary to send Dasganu outside and that Baba could have personally taught him, we say that Baba followed the right or best course, or how else could Dasganu would have learned a great lesson, that the poor maid servant and her sari were pervaded by the Lord. Now we close the chapter with another beautiful extract about this Upanishad. The ethics of the Isha Upanishad. One of the main features of the Isha Upanishad is the ethical advice it offers, and it is interesting to note that the ethics of the Upanishad are definitely based upon the metaphysical position advanced in it. The very opening words of the Upanishad tells us that God pervades everything. As a corollary from this metaphysical position, the ethical advice it offers is that a man ought to enjoy whatever God bestows on him in the firm belief that as he pervades everything, whatever is bestowed on him by God must be good. It follows naturally that the Upanishad should forbid us from coveting another man's property. In fact, we are fittingly taught here a lesson of contentment with one's own lot in the belief that whatever happens, it is divinely ordained and it is hence good for us. Another moral advice is that man must spend his lifetime always in doing actions, especially the karmas enjoined in the Shastras, in a mood of believing, resignation to his will. Inactivity, according to this Upanishad, would be the canker of the soul. It is only when a man spends his lifetime on doing actions in this manner that he can hope to attain the ideal of Naishkarma. Finally, the text goes on to say that a man who sees all beings in the self and sees the self as existing in all beings, in fact, for whom all beings and everything that exists have become the self, how can such a man suffer infatuation? What ground would such a man have for grief? Loathfulness, infatuation, and grief verily proceed from our not being able to see the Atma in all things. But a man who realizes the oneness of all things, for whom everything has become the self, must, ipso facto, cease to be affected by the common foibles of humanity. Bow to Shirdi Sai, peace be to all.
21. Stories of V.H. Thakur, Anantara Patankar, and Bandarpo Pleader. In this chapter, Hemant Pant relates the story of Vinayak Harishchandra Thakur, Anantara Patankar of Pune, and a pleader from Bandarpur. All these stories are very interesting, which, if very carefully read and grasped, will lead the readers onto the spiritual path. Preliminary. It is a general rule that is our good luck in the form of accumulation of merits in past births that enables us to seek the company of saints and profit thereby. In illustration of this rule, Hemant Pant gives his own instance. He was a resident magistrate of Bandra, a suburb of Bombay, for many years. A famous Mohammedan saint named Pir Maulana was living there, and many Hindus, Parsis, and many others who followed different religions used to go to him and take his darshan. His Mujawar priest by the name Yunus pressed Hemant Pant many a time, night and day, for going to see him. But for some reason or other, he was not able to see him. After many years, his turn came, and he was called to Shirdi, where he was permanently enlisted in Sai Baba's Darbar. Unfortunate fellows do not get this contact of the saints. It is only the fortunate ones that get it. Institution of Saints. There have been many institutions of saints in this world from time immemorial. Various saints appear incarnate themselves in various places to carry out the missions allotted to them. But though they work in different places, they are, as it were, one. They work in unison under the common authority of the Almighty Lord, and know full well what each of them is doing in his place, and supplement his work where necessary. An instance illustrating this is given below. Mr. Thakur. Mr. V.H. Thakur, B.A., was a clerk in the Revenue Department, and he once came to a town named Vedagaon, near Belgaon, along with a survey party. There he saw a Canarese saint, Uppa, and bowed before him. The saint was explaining a portion from the book Vichasagar of Nishaldas, a standard work on Vedanta, to the audience. When Thakur was taking his leave to go, he said to him, "You should study this book, and if you do so, your desires will be fulfilled, and when you go to the north in the discharge of your duties in the future, you will come across a great saint by your good luck, and then he will show you the future path, and give rest to your mind and make you happy." Then he was transferred to Junar, where he had to go by crossing Nanagat. This ghat was very steep and impassable, and no other conveyance than a buffalo was way of use in crossing it. So he had to take a buffalo ride through the ghat, which inconvenienced and pained him much. Thereafter, he was transferred to Kalyan on a higher post, and there he became acquainted with Nana Sahib Chandukar. He heard much about Sai Baba from him and wished to see him. The next day, Nana Sahib had to go to Shirdi, and he asked Thakur to accompany him. He could not do so as he had to attend the Thana civil court for a civil case. So Nana Sahib went alone. Thakur went to Thana, but there the case was postponed. Then he repented for not accompanying Nana Sahib. Still, he left for Shirdi, and when he went there, he found that Nana Sahib had left the place the previous day. Some of his other friends whom he met there took him to Baba. He saw Baba, fell at his feet, and was overjoyed. His eyes were full of tears of joy, and his hair stood on end. Then, after a while, the omniscient Baba said to him, "The path of this place is not so easy as the teaching of the Canarese saint Uppa, or even as the buffalo ride in Nanagat. In this spiritual path, you have to put in your best exertion, as it is very difficult." When Thakur heard these significant signs and words, which none else than he knew, he was overwhelmed with joy. He came to know that the word of the Canarese saint had turned true. Then, joining both hands and placing his head on Baba's feet, he prayed that he should be accepted and blessed. Then Baba said, "What Uppa told you was all right, but these things have to be practiced and lived. Mere reading won't do. You have to think and carry out what you read, otherwise it is of no use. Mere book learning without the grace of the Guru and self-realization is no avail." The theoretical portion was read from the work Vichasagar by Thakur, but the practical way was shown to him at Shirdi. Another story given below will bring out this truth more forcibly. Anantara Patankar. One gentleman from Pune by the name Anantara Patankar wished to see Baba. He came to Shirdi and took Baba's darshan. His eyes were appeased. He was much pleased. He fell at Baba's feet and after performing proper worship said to Baba, "I have read a lot, studied Vedas, Vedantas, Upanishads and heard all the Puranas, but still I have not got any peace of mind. And so I think that all my reading was useless. Simple, ignorant, devout persons are better than myself. Unless the mind becomes calm, all book learning is of no avail. I have heard from many people that you easily give peace of mind to so many people by your mere glance and playful words. So I have come here. Please take pity on me and bless me." Then Baba told him a parable, which was as follows. Parable of 9 balls of stool. Navavida Bhakti. Once a Saudagar merchant came here. Before him a mare passed her stall, 9 balls of stool. The merchant, intent on his quest, spread the end of his daughter and gathered all the 9 balls in it, and thus he got concentration, peace of mind. Mr. Patankar could not make out the meaning of the story, so he asked Ganesh Damodar, alias Dada Kelkar, "What does Baba mean by this?" He replied, "I too do not know all that Baba says and means, but at his inspiration I say what I come to know. The mare is God's grace, and the 9 balls excreted are the 9 forms or types of bhakti. Shravana, hearing, Kirtana, praying, Smarana, remembering, Padasevana, resorting to the feet, Archana, worship, Namaskarana, bowing, Dasya, service, and Sakitva, friendship, and Atma-nivedana, surrender of the self. These are the 9 types of bhakti. If any of these is faithfully followed, Lord Hari will be pleased and manifest himself in the home of the devotee. All the sadhanas, japa, vocal worship, and tapa, penance, yoga practice, and studying the scriptures and expounding them are quite useless unless they are accompanied by bhakti, i.e. devotion. Knowledge of the Vedas or fame as a great gnani and mere formal bhajan worship are of no avail. What is wanted is loving devotion. Consider yourself as the merchant or seeker after the truth and be anxious and eager like him to collect or cultivate the 9 types of devotion. Then you will attain a stability and peace of mind. The next day when Padunka went to Baba for salutation, he asked whether he collected the 9 balls of stool. Then he said that he, being a poor fellow, should first be graced by Baba, and then they will be easily collected. Then Baba blessed and comforted him, saying that he would attain peace and welfare. After hearing this, Padunka became overjoyed and happy. The Pandharpur Pleader. We shall close this chapter with a short story showing Baba's omniscience, and he is using it for correcting people and setting them on the right path. Once a pleader from Pandharpur came to Shirdi, went to the masjid, saw Sai Baba, fell at his feet, and without being asked, offered some dakshina, and sat in a corner eager to hear the talk that was going on. Then Baba turned his face towards him and said, "How cunning the people are! They fall at the feet, offer dakshina, but inwardly give abuses behind the back. Is not this wonderful?" This cap fitted the pleader, and he had to wear it. No one understood the remark. The pleader grasped it but kept silent. When they returned to Vada, the pleader said to Kaka Sahib Dikshit, "What Baba remarked was perfectly right. The dart was aimed at me. It was a hint to me that I should not indulge in reviling or scandalizing others." When the sub-judge or Munsif of Pandharpur, Mr. Nurkar, came and stayed here for the improvement of his health, a discussion about this matter was going on in the barroom at Pandharpur, as it ever happens in many a barroom. It was said or discussed there whether the ailments from which the sub-judge suffered were ever likely to be gotten rid of without medicines, by merely going after Sai Baba, and whether it was proper for an educated man, like the sub-judge, to have recourse to such methods. The sub-judge was taken to task, i.e. he was criticised as also Sai Baba. I also took some part in this affair, and now Sai Baba showed the impropriety of my conduct. This is not a rebuke to me, but a favour, an advice that I should not indulge in any scandal or slander of others, and not interfere unnecessarily in others' affairs. Shirdi is about 100 kos distance from Pandharpur. Still, Baba by his omniscience knew what transpired there in the barroom. The intervening places, rivers, jungles and mountains were not a bar to his all-perceiving sight, and he could not see or read the hearts of all. There was nothing secret or veiled from him. Everything far or near was plain and clear to him as broad as daylight. Let a man be far or near, he could not avoid the all-pervading gaze of Sai Baba. From this instant the pleader took the lesson that he should never speak ill of others, nor unnecessarily criticise them. This is his evil tendency, was completely gotten rid of, and he was set on the right path. Though the story refers to a pleader, still it is applicable to all. All should, therefore, take this lesson to heart and profit thereby. Sai Baba's greatness is unfathomable, so are his wonderful leelas. His life is also such, for he is Para Brahman, Lord God incarnate. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 22. Rescues from Serpent Bite. 1. Bala Sahib Miracle. 2. Bapu Sahib Booty. 3. Amir Shakar. 4. Hamadpan. Baba's opinion regarding killing of serpent. Preliminary. How to meditate on Baba. No one has been able to fathom the nature or the form of the Almighty. Even the Vedas and the thousand-tongued Shesha are not able to describe it fully. Footnote. According to Hinduism, the earth rests on the head of the serpent god Sheshnag, who has 1,000 head. But the devotees cannot but know and look at the form of the Lord, for they know that his feet are the only mean of their happiness. They know no other method of attaining the supreme goal of life, except meditating on the holy feet. Hemad Pant suggests an easy way of devotion and meditation as follows. As the dark fortnight of every month wears out gradually, the moonlight also wanes in the same degree, and on the new moon day, we do not see the moon at all, nor do we get her light. Therefore, when the bright fortnight begins, people are very anxious to see the moon. On the first day, the moon is not seen, and on the second day, also she is not clearly visible. Then the people are asked to see the moon through an opening between the two branches of a tree. And when they begin to see through this aperture eagerly and after concentrating, the distant small crescent of the moon comes to their great delight within their ken. Following this clue, let us try now to see Baba's light. Look at Baba's posture, how fine it is. He is sitting with his legs folded, the right leg across the left knee, the finger of his left hand are spread on the right foot, on the right toe are spread his two fingers, the index and the middle ones. By this posture, Baba means to say, if you want to see my light, be egoless and most humble, and meditate on my toe with the opening between the two branches, index and middle fingers, and then you will be able to see my light. This is the easiest means of attaining devotion. Now, let us turn for a moment to Baba's life. Shirdi has become a place of pilgrimage on account of Baba's stay. People from all quarters began to flock there, and both the rich and the poor began to be benefited in more ways than one, and in some form or other. Who can describe Baba's boundless love and his wonderful natural knowledge and his all-pervasiveness? Blessed is he who can experience one or all of these. Sometimes Baba observed long silence, which was in a way his dissertation on Brahman, and at other time he was consciousness bliss incarnate, surrounded by his devotees. Sometimes he spoke in parables, and at other time indulged in wit and humor. At times he was quite unambiguous, and at times he seemed enraged. Sometimes he gave his teaching in a nutshell, and at other time he argued at length. Many a time he was very plain. In this way, he gave varied instruction to many, according to their requirement. His life was therefore inscrutable, beyond the ken of our mind, beyond our intellect and speech. Our longing to see his face, to talk with him, and to hear his leela was never satisfied. Still, we were overflowing with joy. We can count the showers of rain and circle tidal wind in a leather bag, but who can gauge or measure his leelas? Now we deal here with one aspect of them, namely how he anticipated or foretold the calamities of his devotees and warded them off. Bala Sahib Mirika. Bala Sahib Mirika, son of Shirdi Sai Mirika, was Manlad of Kopergun. He was going on a tour of Chitali. On the way he came to Shirdi to see Sai Baba. When he went to the masjid and prostrated himself before Baba, usual conversation regarding health and other matters commenced. When Baba sounded a note of warning as follows, "Do you know our Dwakamai?" As Bala Sahib did not understand, he kept quiet. Baba continued, "This is our Dwakamai, where you are sitting. She wards off all dangers and anxiety of the children who sits on her lap. This Masjid Mai, his presiding deity, is very merciful. She is the mother of the simple devotees, whom she will save in calamities. Once a person sits on her lap, all the trouble are over. He who rests in her shade gets bliss." Then Baba gave him Uddi and placed his protecting hand on his head. When Bala Sahib was about to depart, he again said, "Do you know this Lamba Baba, long gentleman, namely serpent?" And then closing the left arm like face, he brought it near the right elbow and moving his left arm like a hood of a serpent, he said, "He is so terrible, but what can he do to the children of Dwakamai? When Dwakamai, its presiding deity, protects, what can the serpent do?" All those who were present there were curious to know the meaning of all this and its reference to miracle, but none had the courage to ask Baba about this. Then Bala Sahib saluted Baba and left the masjid with Shama. Baba called Shama back and asked him to accompany Bala Sahib and enjoy the Chitali trip. Shama came to Bala Sahib and told him that he would go with him according to Baba's wish. Bala Sahib replied that he need not come as it would be inconvenient. Shama returned to Baba and told him what Bala Sahib said to him. Baba said, "All right, do not go. We should mean well and do well. Whatever is destined to happen will happen." In the meanwhile, Bala Sahib thought over again and calling Shama asked him to accompany him. Then Shama going again to Baba and taking his leave started with Bala Sahib in the Tanga. They reached Chitali at 9 p.m. and encamped in the Maruti temple. The office people had not come, so they sat quietly in the temple talking and chit-chatting. Bala Sahib was sitting on a mat reading a newspaper. His upalni, upper dhota, was spread across his waist, and on a part of it, a snake was sitting unobserved. It began to move with a rustling sound, which was heard by the peon. He brought a lantern, saw the snake, and raised an alarm. "Serpent, serpent!" Bala Sahib was frightened and began to quiver. Shama was also amazed. Then he and others moved noiselessly and took sticks and clubs in the hand. The snake got down slowly from the waist and it moved away from Bala Sahib. It was immediately done to death. Thus, this calamity which was prophesied by Baba was averted, and Bala Sahib's love for Baba was deeply confirmed. Bapu Sahib Bhuti, a great astrologer named Nana Sahib Dengale told one day Bapu Sahib Bhuti, who was in Shirdi, "Today is an inauspicious day for you. There is danger to your life." This made Bapu Sahib restless. When they, as usual, came to the masjid, Baba said to Bapu Sahib, "What does this Nana say? He foretells death for you. Well, you need not be afraid. Tell him boldly, let us see how death kills." Then late in the evening, Bapu Sahib went to the privy for easing himself, where he saw a snake. His servant saw it and lifted a stone to strike at it. Bapu Sahib asked him to get a big stick, but before the servant returned with the stick, the snake was seen moving away and soon disappeared. Bapu Sahib remembered with joy Baba's word of fearlessness. Amir Shakar. Amir Shakar was a native of the village of Korale in Kopagon Taluka. He belongs to the butcher's caste. He worked as a commission agent in Bandra and was well known there. He once suffered from rheumatism, which gave him much pain. He was reminded of God, and so he left his business and went to Shirdi and prayed to Baba to relieve him from his malady. Baba then stationed him in the Chavadi, which was a damp, unhealthy place and unfit for such a patient. Any other place in the village or Koral itself would have been better for Amir, but Baba's word was the deciding factor and the chief medicine. Baba did not allow him to come to the masjid, but fixed him in the Chavadi, where he got a very great advantage. Baba passed through the Chavadi every morning and evening, and every alternate day, Baba went to Chavadi in a procession and slept there. So Amir got Baba's contact very often easily. Amir stayed there for full 9 months. And then, somehow or other, he got a disgust for the place. So one night, he stealthily left the place and came to Kopagon and stayed in the Dharmashala. There, he saw an old dying fakir who asked him for water. Amir brought it and gave it to him. As soon as he drank it, he passed away. Then Amir was fixed. He thought that if he went and informed the authorities, he would be held responsible for the death, as he was the first and sole informant and knew something about it. He repented for his action, namely leaving Shirdi without Baba's leave, and prayed to Baba. He then determined to return to Shirdi, and the same night he ran back, remembering and muttering Baba's name on the way, and reached Shirdi before daybreak and became free from anxiety. Then he lived in the Chavali in a perfect accordance with Baba's wishes and orders, and got himself cured. One night it so happened that Baba cried at midnight, "Oh Abdul, some devilish creature is dashing against my bed." Abdul came with a lantern, examined Baba's bed, but found nothing. Baba asked him to examine carefully all the place and began to strike the ground with his zakta. Seeing this leela of Baba, Amir thought that Baba might have suspected some serpent had come there. Amir could know by close and long contact the meaning of Baba's words and action. Baba then saw near Amir's cushion something moving. He asked Abdul to bring the light, and when he brought it, he saw the collar of a serpent there, moving its head up and down. Thereupon, the serpent was immediately beaten to death. Thus, Baba gave timely warning and saved Amir. Hamadpant, Scorpion and Serpent. 1. At Baba's recommendation, Kaka Sahib Dixit was daily reading the two works of Sri Eknath Maharaj, namely Bhagavad and Bhagavata Ramayana. And Hamadpant had the good fortune to be one of the audience when the reading of the works was going on. Once, when a portion of the Ramayana relating to Hanuman testing Rama's greatness, according to his mother's instruction, was being read, all the listeners were spellbound. Hamadpant was one of them. A big scorpion, none knew where it came from, jumped and sat on the right shoulder of Hamadpant, on his upalni, upper daughter. First, it was not noticed, but as the Lord protects those who are intent on hearing his stories, he casually cast a glance on his right shoulders and noticed it. It was dead silence, not a bit moved here or there. It seemed as if it enjoyed the reading. Then, by the Lord's grace, Hamadpant, without disturbing the audience, took the two ends of his daughter, folded them, and brought them together. And closing the scorpion within, then he went out and threw it in the garden. 2. On one occasion, some people were sitting in the upper floor of Kaka Sahib Dixit Wada, just before nightfall, when a serpent crept through a hole in the window frame and sat curled up. A light was brought. Though it was first dazzled, yet it sat still and only moved its head up and down. Then many persons rushed there with stick and cudgel, but as it sat in an awkward place, no blow could be dealt. But hearing the noise of man, the serpent went out hastily to the same hole. Then all the persons there felt relieved. Baba's opinion. One devotee named Muktaram then said it was good that the poor creature escaped. Hamadpant challenged him, saying that serpent should be better killed. There was a hot discussion between them. The former contending that serpent and such creatures should not be killed, the latter that they should be. As night came on, the discussion came to an end, without any decision being arrived at. Next day, the question was referred to Baba, who gave his settled opinion as follows. God lives in all beings and creatures, whether they be serpent or scorpion. He is a great whirlpool of the world, and all beings, serpent and scorpion, etc., obey his command. Unless he will it, nobody can do any harm to others. The world is dependent on him, and no one is independent. So, we should take pity and love all creatures. Leave off adventurous fights and killing and be patient. The Lord, God, is a protector of all. Go to Shirdi Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 23. Yoga and onion, Shama cured of snake, bite, cholera, ordinance broken, ordeal of Guru Bhakti. Preliminary. Really, this jiva, human soul, transcends the three qualities, namely sattva, rajas and tamas, but being deluded by maya, he forgets his nature, which is existence, knowledge, bliss, and thinks that he is the doer and enjoyer, and thus entangles himself in endless miseries and does not know the way of deliverance. The only way of deliverance is loving devotion towards the Guru's feet. The great player or actor Lord Sai has delighted his bhaktas and transformed them into himself, his nature. We regard Sai Baba as an incarnation of God for reasons already stated, but he always said that he was an obedient servant of God. Though an incarnation, he showed the people the way, how to behave satisfactorily and carry out the duties of their respective stations, Varanas, in this life. He never emulated others in any way, nor asked others to have something done for him. For him who saw the Lord in all movable and immovable things of this world, humility was the most proper thing. None he disregarded or disrespected, for he saw Narayan, Lord, in all beings. He never said, I am God, but that he was a humble servant, and he always remembered him and always uttered, Allah Malik, God is the sole proprietor or owner. We do not know the various kinds of saints, how they behave, what they do and eat, etc. We only know that by God's grace they manifest themselves in this world to liberate the ignorant and bound souls. If there be any store of merits on our account, we get a desire in listening to the stories and leelas of the saints, otherwise not. Let us now turn to the main stories of this chapter. Yoga and Onion. Once it so happened that a sadhak of yoga came to Shirdi with Nana Sahib Chandokar. He had studied all the works on yoga, including the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, but had no practical experience. He could not concentrate his mind and attain samadhi even for a short time. He thought that if Sai Baba be pleased with him, he will show him the way to attain samadhi for a long time. With this object in view, he came to Shirdi. And when he went to the masjid, he saw Sai Baba eating bread with onion. On seeing this, a thought arose in his mind. How can this man eating stale bread with raw onion solve my difficulties and help me? Sai Baba read his mind and said to Nana Sahib, "O Nana, he who has the power to digest onion should eat it and none else." Hearing this remark, the yogi was wonderstruck, and then he fell at Baba's feet with complete surrender. With pure and open mind, he asked his difficulties and got their solution from Baba. Thus, being satisfied and happy, he left Shirdi with Baba's Udi and blessings. Sharma cured of snake bite. Before Hemant Pant begins the story, he says about the jiva that it can be very well compared with a parrot, and that they are both bound, the one in the body and the other in a cage. Both think that their present bound state is good for them. It is only when a helper, i.e. Guru, comes and by God's grace opens their eyes and liberates them from their bondage, that their eyes are open to a greater and larger life, compared to which their former limited life is nothing. In the last chapter, it was shown how Baba anticipated the calamity that was to befall on Mr. Mirigar and rescued him from it. Now let the readers hear a story grander than that. Once Sharma was bitten by a poisonous snake. His little finger of the hand was stung and the poison began to spread into the body. The pain was also severe and Sharma thought that he would pass off soon. His friends wanted to take him to the god Viroba, where such cases were often sent, but Sharma ran to the masjid, to his Viroba, Sai Baba. When Baba saw him, he began to scold and abuse. He got enraged and said, "O vile Baturda, priest, do not climb up. Beware if you do so," and then roared, "Go, get away, come down." Seeing Baba thus red with wrath, Sharma was greatly puzzled and disappointed. He thought that the masjid was his home and Sai Baba his sole refuge, but if he was driven away like this, where should he go? He lost all hope of life and kept silent. After a time, Baba became normal and calm when Sharma went up and sat near. Then Baba said to him, "Don't be afraid, don't care a jot. The merciful fakir will save you. Go and sit quiet at home. Don't go out. Believe in me and remain fearless and have no anxiety." Then he was sent home. Immediately afterwards, Baba sent Tata Patil and Kaka Saheb Dixit to him with instructions to the effect that he should eat what he liked, should move in the home, but should never lie down and sleep. Needless to say that these instructions were acted upon and Sharma got all right in a short time. The only thing to be remembered in this connection is this: the words of Baba, or the 5-syllable mantra, namely go, get away, come down, were not addressed to Sharma as it apparently looked, but they were a direct order to the snake and its poison not to go up and circulate through Sharma's body. Like others well versed in mantra shastra, he had not to use any incantation, charged rice or water, etc. His words only were most efficacious in saving the life of Sharma. Anyone hearing this story and other similar ones will beget firm faith in the feet of Sai Baba, and the only way to cross the ocean of Maya is to remember ever the feet of Baba in the heart. Cholera epidemic. Once, cholera was raging virulently in Shirdi. The residents were much frightened and they stopped all communication with the outside people. The Panchas, 5 headmen of the village, assembled together and decided upon 2 ordinances as a remedy to check and put down the epidemic. They were: 1, no fuel cart should be allowed to come in the village, and 2, no goat should be killed there. If anybody disobeyed these ordinances, they were to be fined by the village authorities and the Panchas. Baba knew that all this was mere superstition, and therefore he carried 2 pence for the cholera ordinances. While the ordinances were in force, a fuel cart came there and wanted to enter the village. Everybody knew that there was a dearth of fuel in the village. Still, the people began to drive away the fuel cart. Baba came to know of this. He came to the spot and asked the cartman to take the fuel cart to the masjid. None dared to raise his voice against this action of Baba. He wanted to fuel for his duni, and so he purchased it. Like an Agnihotri, fire worshipper, keeping his sacred fire alive throughout his life, Baba kept his duni ever burning all day and night, and for this he always stocked fuel. Baba's home, i.e. the masjid, was free and open to all. It had no lock and key, and soon some poor people removed some wood from there for their use. Baba did not grumble about this. Baba saw that the whole universe was pervaded by the Almighty, and so he never bore enmity or ill will to others. Though perfectly detached, he behaved like an ordinary householder to set an example to the people. Ordeal of Guru Bhakti. Let us now see how the second cholera ordinance fared with Baba. While it was in force, somebody brought a goat to the masjid. It was weak, old, and about to die. At that time, Fakir Bir Muhammad of Melagon, alias Bad Baba, was near. Sai Baba asked him to behead it with one stroke and offer it as oblation. This Bade Baba was much respected by Sai Baba. He always sat on the right hand of Sai Baba. After the chilam pipe was first smoked by him, it was then offered to Baba and others. After the dishes were served at the time of taking meals at noon, Baba respectfully called Bade Baba and made him sit on his left side, and then all partook of food. Baba paid him also daily rupees 50 out of the amount collected as dakshina. Baba accompanied him 100 paces whenever he was going away. Such was his position with Baba. But when Baba asked him to behead the goat, he flatly refused, saying, "Why should it be killed for nothing?" Then Baba asked Sharma to kill it. He went to Radha Krishnamai and brought a knife from her and placed it before Baba. Knowing the purpose for which the knife was taken, she recalled it. Then Sharma went to bring another knife, but stayed in the Wada and did not return soon. Then came the turn of Kaksha Sahib Dikshit. He was good gold, no doubt, but had to be tested. Baba asked him to get a knife and kill the goat. He went to Sathya and returned with a knife. He was ready to kill it at Baba's bidding. He was born in a pure Brahmin family and never in his life knew killing. Though quite averse to do any act of violence, he made himself bold to kill the goat. All the people wondered to see that Bade Baba, a Mohammedan, was unwilling to kill it, while this pure Brahmin was making preparations to do so. He tightened his dhota and with a semicircular motion raised his hands with the knife and looked at Baba for the final signal. Baba said, "What are you thinking of? Go on, strike." Then, when the hand was just about to come down, Baba said, "Stop! How cruel are you? Being a Brahmin, you are killing a goat?" Kaka Sahib obeyed and kept the wife down and said to Baba, "Your nectar-like word is law unto us. We do not know any other ordinance. We remember you always, meditate on your form and obey you day and night. We do not know or consider whether it is right or wrong to kill. We do not want to reason or discuss things, but implicit and prompt compliance with Guru's orders is our duty and dharma." Then Baba said to Kaksha Sahib that he would himself do the offering and killing business. It was settled that the goat should be disposed of in a near place called Takya, where fakirs used to sit. Then, when the goat was being removed to that place, it fell dead on the way. Hemant Pant closes the chapter with a classification of disciples. He says that they are of three kinds. 1, first or best. 2, second or middling. And 3, third or ordinary. The best kind of disciples are those who guess what their gurus want and immediately carry it out and serve them without waiting for an order from them. The average disciples are those who carry out the orders of their masters to a letter without any delay, and the third kind of disciples are those who go on postponing the carrying out of their orders and making mistakes at every step. The disciple should have firm faith backed up by intelligence, and if they and patience to these, their spiritual goal will not be distant. Control of breath, ingoing and outgoing, or hatha yoga, or other difficult practices are not at all necessary. When the disciples get the above-mentioned qualities, they become ready for further instructions, and the masters then appear and lead them on in their spiritual path to perfection. In the next chapter, we will deal with Baba's interesting wit and humor. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Shri Satchidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj ki jai. Aarati Sai Baba Saukya Datar Jeeva Charanal Jatani Yavada Savisava Bhakta Visava Aarati Sai Baba Tumche Nam Dhyata Hari Samskriti Vyata Agadha Tava Karani Margada Visiyanada Visiyanada Aarati Sai Baba Kali Yogi Avatara Saguna Para Brahma Sachara Avatirna Jala Se Swami Datta Digambar Aarati Sai Baba Saukya Datar Jeeva Charanal Jatani Javada Savisava Bhakta Visava Aarati Sai Baba Shirdi Sai Pandharpura Sai Baba Rama Baba Rama माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रिये वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृति स्वभावा करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि अच्युतं केशवं रामनारायणं कृष्णदामोदरं वासुदेवं हरिं श्रीधरं माधवं गोपिकावल्लभं जानकीनायकं रामचन्द्रं भजे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे श्री गुरुदेव दत्त अनंता तुला ते कसे रे स्तवावे अनंता तुला ते कसे रे नमावे अनंता मुखाचा शिरे शेषगाता नमस्कार साष्टांग श्री साईनाथा ऐसा येई बा साई दिगंबरा अक्षय रूपावतारा सर्व हि व्यापक तू श्रुति सारा अनुसयात कुमारा बाबा येई बा सदा सत्स्वरूपं चिदानन्दकन्दं जगत्सम्भवस्थान संहारहेतुं स्वभक्तेच्छया मानुषं दर्शयन्तं नमामीश्वरं सद्गुरुं साईनाथम् रुसो मम प्रियाम्बिका मजबरी पिता हि रुसो रुसो मम प्रियाङ्गना प्रियसुता मजाहि रुसो रुसो भगिनी बन्धुहि श्वशुर सासुबाई रुसो ददत्त गुरु साई मजबरी कदीहि रुसो गुणाची घृणा नसो न च स्पृहा कशाची असो सदैव हृदयी वसो मनसि ध्यानि साई वसो मनी प्रणयवो रसो निखिल दृश्य बाबानिसो नदत्त गुरु साई मा उपनिया चनेला रुसो हरि ओम यज्ञेन यज्ञमयजन्तदेवास्तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् तेहनाकं महिमानः सचन्त यत्र पूर्वे साध्या सन्ति देवाः ॐ राजाधिराजाय प्रसन्न साईने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्महे समे कामान् कामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः श्रीनारायण वासुदेवाय सच्चिदानन्द सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय करचरण कृतं वा कायजं कर्मजं वा शरणनयनजं वा मानसं वा परालं विहितमविहितं वा सर्वमेतत्क्षमस्व जय जय करुणाते श्री प्रभो साईनाथ श्री सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय योगी साईनाथ महाराज की जय।
स्वामी सत्य साई हरे, भक्त जना संरक्षक, भक्त जना संरक्षक, हरि महेश, ओम जय जगदीश
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी